Now I'm going to have to move this again because it's not in the right spot. And if I move it, can you move it then maybe? Because when I move it, it just turns the whole thing off. Yeah. I don't know why when I touched it, it went off. And I guess I'm live. Temper tantrum. I hate computers. All right. We're live. It's still not where I want it. And the last time I touched it, it just turned the whole damn computer off. Which that makes perfect sense, right? Attitude. 8:03, November 4th, 2025. I'm Mark, your host, coming to you from Baker's Green Acres here in lovely Marion, Michigan. Lovely Marion, Michigan, supposed to get 3 to 5 inches of snow coming this Sunday. And it's also supposed to plummet. The temperature is supposed to plummet. So I knew this was coming. You know, I just knew this was coming. And even since the middle of summer, I've been cleaning up, thinking, well, if I leave that there, I'm going to feel real dumb not being able to find it because it gets covered with snow. And what happens this time of year, you know, it's November. What is it? 4th. You know, you're not thinking, well, snow's coming, but we've had years here where the middle of the month we get 6 inches of snow, and that's it. The winter has begun, and we haven't had one of those in a while, but it's par for the course. I mean, it can happen. So I got a couple of days here to really get it together and get things moved around and get ready for snow. And that's what I'm planning to do. Today was a big day. We had, I'll tell you, we have butchered more chickens this year than we ever have in the 21 years that we've been here. This year, because there's been a couple other processors that closed down, they've all come to us. And so we've had to go 2 days. We were really happy with just doing one day, Friday. And it would be a big day, but it was enough. And so to meet the needs of the people calling us, we've had to go Tuesday and Friday. And we did that a couple times thinking, oh, okay, we did a few times last year, probably 10 times last, but this year it's been every week. So 2 days. And today we finished up at 7 o'clock tonight, 7 o'clock. And we're not even finished. One of the people who we did, she brought us like 25 big turkeys and wanted them breasted out and then ground. So it was a big job. I wasn't really part of that. That's not my end of the operation. I was on to other things, but the crew worked right until 7 o'clock, and we got people loaded out and gone, and all the animals fed and the cows milked, and all that stuff had to happen during the day. And it's a good thing when you get to this place and you're able to kind of tie a knot or tie a bow on the end of the day and say, we done good. And we made money. We're making it happen. And this morning is when I picked the title for this presentation tonight. And it has to do with things that are going on in my life. You guys know I've had an injury to my right foot that's been going on for about a month, and it limits me. And I really have to believe that everything that happens is part of the overall plan. I really have to believe that at this point in time. I really can't say that things are just by chance or just happenstance. I just don't see that at this point. And I've been a little careful on this presentation because I wanted to maintain a separation between religious beliefs and farming. But the further I go and the more we talk about this, I have to share with you that the divide between spirituality and farming, it's kind of a thin thread. It's a thin thread. And you say, well, separation of religion and farming. Well, it's not really religion. I could say that farming is sort of a religion with a spiritual aspect. That's the way I would put it, because when you work with the animals and the plants and the soil, you see a design. You see it. A lot of times I talk about pattern recognition. I see something happen, and then it happens again, and there's a pattern, and then it happens again. Oh, now we got a real pattern here. The recognition between the plants and the animals is consistent. I mean, you see it all the time, but you got to be in it. You got to be in it. And it's not something you can go out and observe. It's sort of like you're doing something else and this animal does this, or this plant does this. Things are left unattended and look what happens, right? And I think as humans, some humans, we like to try and control. We like to be control freaks. And, that gets tempered in time because you start to realize, wow, I don't really have that much control at all. I can kind of guide things a little bit sometimes, but on the big things, I really don't have a lot of control. I was telling a friend of mine a story. I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, a guy that I have not seen in 20 years, or 25 probably, but we were real close, worked together at my second duty assignment out in northern Maine. That's where I met this guy. And then he moved from where he was living and he moved to this state. And so I said, hey, we need to catch up a little bit. And so we got to talking about old times and stuff. And he had been a pastor and did that. He was in the Air Force when I knew him. And then he left the Air Force to go to Bible college and then became a pastor and was in the pastoring business for 21 years, about the same time I've been here. And then got out of that, retired, and then moved to this state because his daughter lives here and stuff. And so we're going to be meeting up again. And we were having some conversations about how and why, and, at this stage of our life, have we got things figured out yet, and things like that. And conversations like that can be helpful because I don't always have those conversations with the kind of the crowd that I run with and with you all. And I got to thinking about some things. There was a term we used to use in the Air Force. It was kind of, we would call it the big picture. Like, well, where you're working to do this. And we don't need you to really be looking at the big picture, right? And, you kind of get used to that. It's like, all right, they want me to do this. I know it fits into the big picture, and I don't know what it is, but I've got to assume it's a good thing. And I don't think you ever really see the big picture because the only view we have of what we're doing is probably the media. Because it's not like our bosses in the Air Force come back to us and say, hey, this is what we did. They don't do that. So you don't really see the big picture. But in this, what I'm doing, and I think anybody that's doing something like this, even if it's just a couple of tomato plants out on your porch, and you spend enough of time around them, you start to feel that there is a spiritual connection. Like, I'm a created being, the tomato plant's a created being, the cow is a created being. Created by who? You know, are we all created by the same creator? Well, that's a good question, I suppose. It doesn't seem to be like there's a creator of plants and a creator of animals. Doesn't say to me. I'd argue against that. My gut tells me no, because the similarities between the plants and the animals, if you really look at it, there's a lot of similarities between them. You know, we have categorized them. You know, science has categorized them, but how accurate is that? Or how defining is that line? All right, I guess I had to put it that way. So let's see, how do I want to get into this? I talked a little bit about this at the farm conference, the Mitten Homestead Farm Conference, and launching into it was one thing, but then maintaining the train of thought was totally a different thing. Hold on a sec. I gotta shut this door. Those people out there are talking. How dare they? When I'm trying to put my thoughts into words, sometimes in the morning, my thoughts seem like, oh, this will be easy to explain. I've got a real good feeling of what this is. Maybe this will be helpful. In the morning, it's easy. But then after a day like we had today, which was a long day and a hard day too. It was a hard day. The thoughts get jumbled up a little bit. Anyway, so I was having a chat with this friend of mine the other day, and I was telling him about a thing that happened to me in the first year that I had moved here. And he was telling me that every blink of your eye has got to be dedicated to the Creator. And the religion that they are, and I went to that church for a long time. It's Wesleyan or Nazarene, and they call it the holiness doctrine. Every blink of your eye has to be dedicated to God, right? So, and I think that is probably true. And here's why. And this is a story that I think would back that up. When I first got here, my old tractor, I was using it down in the back field, way down. And then it got to be Sunday evening, and back then we used to go to church Sunday evening. And so I got off, and back then really we were not big believers in working on Sunday. We weren't big believers in that. But I was doing it anyway because I had to, because rain was coming. And I was hay down in the back, and then I got off the tractor and walked up to go to church. I got home, and it looked like the clouds are rolling in, you know. And so I scurried on down there. I didn't have a motorcycle back then, so I walked. There was no other drivers but Jill, and we had little kids, babies. And so I walked, and I got on the tractor, fired it up, and I thought, I'm going to leave the rake here, so I'm going to unhook it. And so the tractor's running, and I get off of it, and I start taking the rake off. So you have to jack it up a little bit and then pull the pin. And then I got on the tractor, and I'm heading to the house, but as I'm taking the rake off, it starts, you know how when it starts to rain and those big drops come down, they hit the ground and it kind of startles you, you know, big drops. And it's like, oh, here it comes. I'm going to get it. And out of my mouth, it comes. I said, GD. and I'm not a big believer in that. You know, I just not a, I just don't like myself saying that. I don't like to hear other people say it, but it does come out of my mouth from time to time, and I wish that it didn't. And I'm always rededicating myself to one thing or another, but I'm going to try and not do that anymore. But anyway, that night I said that, and about that time, a big bolt of lightning hit behind me, and it startled me. Startled me. And I thought, there I was, just using God's name in vain, and how quickly I could be standing before him with my hat in my hand saying, oops. That's what I thought at the time. Nothing was said. I didn't say anything to anybody. It was by myself. And anyway, that passed. That feeling passed over me. I got on the tractor. I'm soaked. Tractor's running. And I'm driving up to the house. I probably went about 20 feet. And all of a sudden, boom, another bolt of lightning, another flash, and a big boom. And then all of a sudden the tractor's wobbling real bad. I'd never been on a tractor where a tire blows, because I'm pretty new to farming. I had that tractor for probably 5 years at that time, but that was out in Montana. It didn't rain much in Montana. I don't think I ever saw lightning out there. I don't recall. And the tractor tire is shot, and it kind of almost came off the wheel. And this is a skinny front end tractor, so I couldn't barely keep it on the road. You know, it kept wanting to turn hard to the left, I guess. And I got too close to the fence and I couldn't get it back. And I was like, the heck with this. So I just sprinted up to the house, and that was it. The next day I saw somebody and I said, hey, what do you do when you get a flat tire? And he says, oh, you call this guy, Steve, at Steve's Tire, and they come out and they fix it. Sure enough, they did. So the guy came out to fix it. I was doing something else. I just meeting the guy, and he says, where is it? And I said, well, it's down there in the field. It's that old Alice Chalmers down there. So he goes down and he puts a tire on it, and he comes back up and he says, I see your tractor got hit by lightning. And I said, I don't think so. Where did it get hit? And he says, well, the tire, of course. And I said, well, that tire went out while I was driving it back. And he said, that's a lightning strike. I said, are you sure? He says, son, I've been doing this for 35 years. I know a lightning strike when I see it. And I said, I was driving it. And he said, you didn't feel anything? I said, no. I know that lightning came down someplace, but I don't think that it hit the tire that was 16 inches from me. And I still thought, he didn't know what he's talking about. That old guy, what does he know? You know, I still thought. And it sunk in. And then I walked down there and I looked at the tire, because he took the old one off and just left it laying there. And I looked at it and there was a hole in it, and it surely was burnt. And the wheel didn't get damaged. Of course, I couldn't see in there because he had put the new one on. I couldn't see it. But I thought, you know, that train of thought that went through my mind was fairly accurate. And maybe the fact that I feared standing before God, maybe the fact that I feared that, in that thought that I had, that, oh, gee, I could be standing before him, And now I got to explain just using his name in vain. Maybe that brief thought that I had was enough to be spared. You know, wasn't my time, I guess. But if that lightning had hit, I don't know if it had hit the fender or something. Maybe, who knows? I've never been hit by lightning before. But I was telling my friend this, and he it meant something to him. I could tell from the way he received it. We're on the phone, but this is a guy from back east, and him and I seem to be able to communicate really well. And that conversation, the whole conversation, has made me think about this thing that we do. We call it homesteading, we call it farming, we call it international living, intentional living. We call it a lot of different things. But what is it really? What is it really? Is there a bigger picture? Like, why was I drawn to this? I came out of, kind of a high-tech military world. And I was not liking it that much. I mean, not liking it enough to just stay, okay, I'm going to stay with this. Or I wasn't drawn to the dollars that you could make going to work for, say, contractors or things like that. I just wasn't really drawn to that. But I was drawn to this. I had a slight taste of it for a few years. My last duty assignment, when Jill and I had bought a small piece of land. It was an old farm, and all the farmland had been sold off, and it was just the house, the barn, and a few acres, 13 to be exact, with a creek that ran through it. It was really a cute place, really cute. I miss it. But why was I drawn to this instead of the other, like military and military contractors? Make no mistake, that is a killing business. Even if you're working, let's say, in a motor pool, you're still part of the mission, and the mission is to kill people and break stuff. That is the mission. And it's got a certain taste to it. And after a while, that taste, I just didn't like the taste of it. It seemed cool. I still watch a lot of military documentaries. I still do. But I don't want to be that involved. I like this, and I feel feelings are a good thing. Sometimes people say things about feelings, and I think feelings are underrated. If you feel good about it, but what is feeling good? Is it just a hedonistic feeling? Like it feels good to it? No, it's more of a peaceful feeling. And that peace comes when you feel like you're more aligned, or me, I feel more aligned with enhancing what the Creator put right in front of me. So I would find it really hard to believe that the Creator of the universe created me to kill other human beings. I would find that hard to believe. And I'm glad I never had to, but that doesn't really alleviate me from being part of the machine that did kill a lot of other human beings. And it works both ways, there's killing on both sides. So I am not about to beat people up that are still involved in it or want to be involved in it. That's a personal choice that people have to make. But for me, I don't want to be involved in it. I even tried to go back once. I really did. I wasn't doing well at this. And a job came open for just putting gas on helicopters at the Army base. And I thought, I can do that. That'd be fun. The smell of jet fuel, and it'd be fun. I'd love to do that. I applied for the job. I never heard back from them. And I'm right at I got all the qualifications for it. It'd be easy, but I never heard back from them. And I saw the ad run again. But maybe it was just, nope, I want to keep you right here, and I want you to overcome some of the obstacles that are in the way that are going to make you into the person that you need to be. Because I have plans for you. Could be. I don't know. Could be, though. So we are taking care of animals and plants and soil, and our connection to those plants and animals and soil and everything else is, should be, for me, I'm not telling you what to do, but for me, the best days I have are the days when I feel like I've done the right thing, right? Because we sometimes talk about how to get it done, and well, it'd be a lot easier if we did this. Yeah, but that kind of violates the principle here. Would you after you cheat, lie, and steal, would you feel good if you get hit by a bolt of lightning and you were standing before God? If that's how it works, it makes sense that that's how it would work. You wouldn't feel too good about that, and you never know. Things can come to an abrupt end any moment of any day. Your farm, does it belong to you? Well, I have the deed. Yeah, you can lose that in an instant. An instant that could be removed from you. No, I want you to do something else. I'm going to put you here. I've got a place for you here. So I'm going to move you there. That could happen. I think when you are working in a career field and you like it, it gives you enjoyment and you can see a future in it. And there's a lot of adventure still out there in the career field that you're working. Things you don't know that you want to know, and things that you haven't, processes that you haven't engaged in or mastered that are still in front of you, and you're still excited about it. It feels like the creator would say, this guy is on a good track. He's making it happen here. I'm going to keep him right here. I'm going to keep him right here. Now, I believe that is the way it is. Sometimes your beliefs, I can't give you any kind of evidence, not even anecdotal evidence that is the way it is. But to me, that's the way it is. And when I'm managing myself, that's all I really need to know. That I work for the top guy. I work directly for the top guy. I work for my customers. Not really. Not really. I work for the top guy because my customers belong to the top guy too. So if I was to go around scooping up roadkill and grinding it in with hamburger, that came up at lunch today. That was a good way we could beat the system to stretch our hamburger. I'm the one that started it too. Dumb conversations you have at lunchtime. I might fool them, but I'm not fooling the top guy. He sees everything I do. Everything I do. Every thought, everything. I know how it started too. I know how that conversation started. We're low on milk. We're heavy on customers, people who want milk, and it's all going. The house is getting ripped off. And I said, I know what we can do. We can just take, we get this powder that you mix up to give to the calves, and it's really cheap. And a gallon of milk is $10. This entire bag is $80, and you can feed a calf out on this stuff. But every time I give a calf a half a gallon of milk, that's $5. If you have a ton of milk, then it's one thing. And so I said, I know what we can do. We can take calf mix and mix it in with the milk, and that'll stretch the milk out. And I was just being facetious. I'm just throwing it out there at the table to see who's going to like, what kind of looks I'm going to get on it. And then somebody else says, well, we could just water the milk down. We'll just put warm water in with the milk. How about we do that? We can put in 2 gallons on 20, and that's $20. Why not? But it was all facetious conversation just to kind of proving the absurd by being absurd. I think Rush Limbaugh used to do that. He used to say that, being absurd to prove the absurdity, or something like that. Nothing like Baker's Green Acres cold water. Woo. Out of a 30-year-old canteen that I've had for 30 years. Longer than that. Longer than that. Same canteen cover and everything. That thing's been all over with me. That one was issued to me at my first. No, that one I had it before I was in the service, actually. Anyway, or the cover, the canteen inside of it was issued to me, and I they didn't ask for it back, so I still got it. I ripped them off, didn't I? But I think what I am going to make a more conscious effort to do is every time I start a process, I'm going to start it as if I go to the top guy and say, is this what you want me to do today? Now, this is a change probably for me to be telling you this, but it's not like we're working for an organization and we're just doing what the foreman tells us to do. And maybe the foreman is going to the owner and saying, is this what you want us to do? And maybe the owner is the one that goes before the creator and say, is this what you want me to do? Maybe it depends what type of individual it is. But when we're working with the created and we're created, I think it only makes sense that we do that. I don't see how you don't do that if you want to be successful. Like, just think if you're running some sort of crew and you're a foreman and the boss is telling you, okay, this is what I need done this week. And you just tell the guys that work for you, you guys can do what you want and hope that they get done what the boss wants. No, you have to be more direct. And I've never seen, well, I shouldn't say that because maybe the bolt of lightning that missed me by 16 inches was directed to miss me by 16 inches. But I've never seen the boss. I've never seen it. Hand me a job card saying this is what I want done. I've never seen the boss send me an email and say, this is how I want you to proceed this week. That's not happened. I think the way this relationship works is I have to go to the boss and say, is this what you want me to do? And as I look back on the past 21 years, there have been things that I have done that have led to extreme frustration and failure. And in each one of those things, like, I don't have an inventory of them or anything, but I suppose if I took the time to sit down and write them all out, I would know for sure that I did not ask. Is this what you want me to do today? I for sure know that I didn't. Because the character, when you work with the creation, when you work with the animals and the plants and the environment that we're in, the whole shebang, and you see the consistency of patterns, when you see that, you start to get an idea, you start to get a feeling for the character of the creator, if that makes sense. And maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe that's a feeling that originates in my gut and it's something that I can never explain. But I do not see the creator of this universe, the universe that I live in, the small little tiny little place that I live in, I do not see chaos. I see order. And sometimes when it looks like chaos to me, it's because my point of view is incorrect. Because as time goes on, I start to see order. I see in design, I see intelligent design. I see it. And again, is it always something that I can explain? Not always. Sometimes it's just a feeling. And it's one of those feelings where you really feel it. You really feel it, and you say, yes, I'm sure that at this moment, this is what I'm supposed to do. And the task is easy. It's easy, and everything drops in place. Along these lines, I sometimes have tasks that I need to do, and I can tell you one right now. When we built the apartment next door last winter, it was before Christmas, and then when we started it was probably 10, 15 days before Christmas, and then it went till probably January 15th when we finished as much as we were gonna finish, and then we went on to something else. And the reason is because my daughter was living over there, and I'm getting married, so she was flying the coop, and so we just shut the water down over there and went on to other projects that we had to do. And we said we'll get back in there in the spring, which we did. And there was some wires that we ran that we left in the boxes, the switch boxes, and I didn't ID those wires. So in these two switch boxes, there was a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Romex wires in there. And one of them went to a circuit box. One of them went to the outside. One of them went to over in the middle of the room for the light, and none of them were ID'd. And I had to put switches in there and make them all work. Switch this goes on. Switch this goes on. And every time I thought about doing that job, I thought, well, I'll do it this way. I'll determine which wire is which by doing this, just diagnose it and then put together a plan to put those switches in and get it done. And I went through it in my head probably 100 times because Joe would say, so what are you going to do tomorrow? It's just that small talk you make sometimes. Yes, what do you got on the docket tomorrow? Well, I got to get over there and I got to get the electric hooked up because there's no lights in that room and it's kind of inconvenient to be in there with no lights. And then I'd think, I got to figure out where those wires go. That sure was dumb not to ID those wires. And that process happened so many times that little job all of a sudden seemed like a huge job. And that was internal workings in my head, right? It wasn't internal workings of me saying, is this what I ought to do today? Do you think this is what I ought to do today? Um, and so I finally begrudgingly got my tools together, drove over, went over, and it was even painful to look at those switch boxes and pull the wires out. And I pulled them out. Holy smokes, they were ID'd. I didn't do it. It wasn't my writing. It was Matt Kolvak's writing on there. And it was clear as day. Overhead light, outside light, feed, jumper, just as plain as day. And so then it just became a process of cutting the wires back, stripping them, and putting the switches in, and cha-ching, it worked. You have those jobs, and they become, it's almost like, it's you know, as soon as you procrastinate just a little bit, it's like, oh boy, this could last a long time, procrastinating. And I have that happens too, you know, and maybe that is because of my lack of just going to the boss and saying, what do you want? What do you want me to do today? And because I tell you what, some days I say, okay, I got to get this done and this done. And then before you know it, somebody wheels in the driveway and says, hey, can I talk to you a minute? And before you know it, it's like totally distracted and going down a different path. And that actually, when I was wiring those boxes, Jill calls my phone, and it's like I see my wife on my phone, and it's like, interruption. It's not lunchtime. What could this be? And she said, there's somebody here that is interested in getting a herd share. Is there any way you can come over here and show her around? And I was like, okay, well, that's what I'm here for. So I got interrupted, and I never did get back on that track. I never did make it back over to do that, because then something else, I had to put out a spot fire here. My days are full of interruptions, because certain things, it falls on me to get them figured out, which is, you know, I signed up for this. I'm not complaining about it, but that's how it goes. So yeah, I hope that comes through as inspirational, because you are not working for someone else on your homestead. You know, it's your homestead. You don't get your marching orders from another human being. Maybe you do, like your kids and stuff, if they work for you. If your wife is saying, what do you want me to do today? Well, okay, maybe sometimes. But me as the head honcho, I sometimes take direction from myself, and sometimes I take direction from the boss. And usually every time when I take direction from the boss, things work out much better. A lot of weight taken off of my shoulders. Sometimes somebody shows up here and they just need to talk for a while. It ain't even about farming, but I can't think that they weren't detailed here. They weren't sent here. And if they were sent here, then I must have the answers that they need. So I stop and do what I got to do. All right. I don't see a lot of action on here. There's not too many people chiming in. What's going on? Look at this. Only 2,000 people in the forum tonight. I wonder, have we got a problem here with the time change? No, it's 8:47. We had thought, see what people think about this. I want to just kind of throw it out there, but with the winter schedule, would it be better if we did this at 7 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock? Because people are coming in earlier now. I remember we started it at 7, but people would say, it's still light out. I still have things to do. I really can't come in. Just a thought, because I'd like to knock it out at 7 to 8, and then, you know, kind of working our way towards relaxation and bedtime. I suppose it's a decision that will have to be made on this end. So, but I'd like to know what people think about that. So Mike Finn's with us, and Sarah Hold the Line Homestead is with us, and that's it. Wonder what's going on. Well, I've got my my message out to you. FYI, this is the first year in 13 years that we are not doing Homestead Hog Harvest. So that's kind of interesting. That would be this coming weekend when we would be doing that. So that's kind of interesting. We're far too busy, and I'm really glad that we made that decision to not do it this year. We did have about 4 or 5 people that wanted to sign up, and we had to tell them, no, sorry, we're going to take a year off, and we'll see what happens. Like if next year, if we had, you know, enough inquiries to fill a class, maybe, because this year it would have been really inconvenient with the chicken processing schedule, 2 days a week, because we would have to not butcher on Friday because Homestead Hog Harvest is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then you're off a day, and then boom, you're back on Tuesday. So that would have been inconvenient. So I'm kind of glad it worked out that way. I'm not sure what the thought process was or the feelings were, but Jill and I both kind of said, you know, I'm not really feeling it this year, you know. And so we said, no, we're not obligated to do this every single year. We can take a year off if we want, or not do it again at all. You know, it's just, we can do what we want. All right, so that's it from here. Tomorrow's going to be kind of a little bit slower paced day. I don't know, it isn't. Thursday will. And tomorrow we will be doing our mentoring call. We are every other week. Or did we do it last week? Yes, I think we did do it last week. So tomorrow would be a day off for that. But anyway, there you go. That's what I have tonight. And appreciate everybody coming by. I don't see any comments there. There's not a lot of action going on. So maybe it's just a good night to chill out. I'm going to go get something to eat. Hit the rack early tonight. Get out there and get your farming on. Now's the time to put the pedal to the metal. All right. Good night. Anyone can farm.